What's up, data transformers? This is Bolaji, and welcome to the Data Careers Show, a show where we watch analytics engineers, data analysts, and data scientists transform their career. Today, we're going to Montpellier, France. Now, for this man, software engineering is not only a job, it's a passion. He specializes in backend and data engineering. He's fond of innovative projects and always eager to work on habit-breaking, world-changing stuff. You can find him writing on Medium, on Stack, on Substack, on LinkedIn. He's got projects on GitHub. He's an open source contributor on DBT, a BigQuery expert from Montpellier, France. Please help me welcome my friend, Christophe Oudar. Welcome, Chris.
Hello. Thank you for the introduction, Bolaji. Very, very nice. Happy to be here to discuss about data on the careers.
This is excellent, Chris. I first got to see you at Coalesce 2024. Even though you weren't there in person, I know that you've been attending all of the Coalesce conferences remotely, and you're such a big contributor to the community. So thank you, first of all, for everything that you've been giving to DBT professionals.
Yeah, I'm glad to be joining the community because DBT community is one of the most vibrant data community out there. It's always helpful, always welcoming, and very inclusive. I learned a lot, and I'm always pleased to help anyone when I can, and also receiving some as well.
That's excellent. Christophe, because this is a show on data careers, we really want to understand how you have managed, where you started from, and how you've managed to reach this level that you're at today. Today, you are a staff software engineer at Teads. Could you tell us a little bit about what your work is today?
Today, well, it's a bit different from where I started. Mostly working on complex projects, coordinating teams on the work around data-related project, but not only. As you mentioned, I'm also working on the backend, but also front-end, and so it's very different. But I'm still doing a lot of SQL every day, so it comes from building analysis and pipelines and ensuring that everything is working well. Because the company I work for, Teads, is an edtech company, and we have massive amounts of data that needs to be processed every day. It comes with quite some challenges.
That makes sense. Yeah, ad tech is a space that has exploded over the past 10 years or so, very data intensive. So I want to dig into some of the projects that you have been working on. But before we go there, I want to go back to the beginning, Christophe. Let's talk about your origin story. So how did you get into data in the first place? Is this something you studied in university?
Well, that's not something I expected at the very beginning. I started, like a lot of us, passionate about computers. And I ended up in an engineering school specialized in computer science. I didn't want back then that I was going to do programming for my living. But then, I tested it and really liked it, especially when I started to do mobile development, because that's something that I could really use for myself. And that was how really I got fond of programming and software development. So after a few internships, I landed in Teads, and I've been there for more than a decade now. I started at the very bottom. I started as a junior backend engineer. I was doing Java. The company actually was switching to Scala back then, and it wasn't very popular, but it was still very powerful already. And by that, I mean that I started migrating a reporting application from Node.js to Scala as one of my first tasks. And since I've been mostly doing a lot of analytics through that reporting app, the company grew at the same time. Just a single app wasn't good enough to handle all the volume of data. And that's where we started to introduce big data somehow, on how it was called back then, on everything around that domain. So we introduced one of the major system known for big data back then, which is Hadoop, that you probably already heard about. So we did some Hadoop, and since we were already a Scala shop, we moved into Spark. And starting from that, we probably created dozens of pipelines. That's pretty much how my data engineering career really started.
Wow. That's interesting. So, Christophe, I also studied computer science in university. When I was a kid, I was interested in computers, video games. I did a little bit of programming like in Fortran and Basic and Pascal, all these languages from a long time ago now. But yeah, I think the growth of technology has been very interesting for a lot of generations of young kids growing up, but also the growth of data, the explosion of data. I wonder, Christophe, how you feel this has changed or is changing the world around us, this explosion of
I think it really evolved a lot, as you said, in the last decade. It's different right now. I feel like we don't get much more data than we used to. There are a lot of regulation around that now, which makes it also harder to track everything. It's really free as is, but for sure we get tons of information and it's very helpful. Sometimes it's hard to really grasp what's the really interesting data that you want to use. There are so many possibilities, and we see that all the time with data science, where data engineering, doing the cleaning and selecting the data is one of the most important tasks.
That is interesting, Christophe. And one of the things I'm curious about is maybe how the role of the data engineer has evolved since you started.
I think back then it was mostly around things like Hadoop, very software oriented and not very accessible. Data engineers were writing a lot of custom things. It was very hard to get started. When you wanted to work with Hadoop, it was a nightmare. And it became more and more accessible. One of the biggest driver of accessibility of those two technologies, data warehouses. When everyone can just write SQL and it runs, and you don't have to mind about scalability, compilations, errors, and compatibility of the different systems, integrations, and stuff like that. And that's something that really was a turn in my career as well. When we started to work with BigQuery, it felt way easier, and that's how I got started to work with DBT. Because back then we had made our own custom tool, and we had the very same need as everyone that needed DBT. But I got to learn of people that were discussing about DBT, and I learned a lot and thought, yeah, that is the kind of thing we want to build, but we didn't really find the way to make it simple, just like DBT was. And that's where we kind of wanted to introduce and get all the benefits from DBT to make the life of our engineers way better when it comes to designing data pipelines. From there, it was like a snowball of more and more pipelines and so on. And really, I think it improved a lot our productivity. And even to this day, I mean, if you're using DBT, you feel like you can build so much in so little time.
Wow, that's great. I want to get into some of the technical work that you've done over the years, Christophe, some of the more challenging projects that you've done. But before we get to that, I wonder if we could walk through I'm looking at your LinkedIn and looking at your job titles. And I like to do this for people who are wondering, how did he get those promotions? How did he move through the levels? So it looks like at Teads, Christophe, you started as a junior software engineer, did that for 3 years, then senior software engineer for 4 years. And now you're a staff software engineer. You've been doing that for 3 years. What do you think allowed you to move from one level to the next level?
There are a few different things. When you start at the beginning, you really start to learn how to do things. And just by doing, you learn so much. I've been lucky to have more senior people to learn from at Teads. that's very impactful when you have role models that give you the right directions to improve technically through peer reviews and or code reviews mostly. And that's how you can get a good sense of how to build great software. And that's how I think I managed to move from junior to senior level by doing things and doing it right and be able then to teach as well as your engineer to do it well as well.
Wow.
So the first step is more technical about how you can be building things autonomously and be as well a role model for juniors.
Wow. I was speaking with one of our other community members just yesterday, also asking these types of questions. This is Bruno from Brazil, and he talked about the importance of having a mentor, which you have just mentioned as well. But here's the challenge, Christophe. Okay, some of us are not so comfortable or not so good asking somebody to be our mentor. Did you choose your own mentors? Or did Teads assign someone to you? Where did you get that help?
Well, I didn't really got exactly a mentor. I think I was lucky to have great managers that were very technically proficient. That's also because every manager is very technical. It was then very helpful for me to really learn from them. But sometimes I agree that you might not have options on you have also to help yourself. I feel like communities can be very helpful, and I see people, asking questions on DBT communities and getting some help and learn things. There are now tons of content to help you to level up by yourself. So I read a lot. I read a lot of content about data engineering, really try to keep up and see how I could do better. And that's often a right way to make some progress in your career.
I like that. That's helpful. All right. We're going to talk at the end of the conversation about some of your aspirations, but let's hold that thought. It's time to dig into some of the projects. So, Christophe, this section of the conversation we call data disasters. All right. We want to know some of the hardest technical problems you have had to solve and how you approached it. Could you share some stories with us?
Well, I've been lucky probably not to land in an unrecoverable disaster directly. But when it happened back then, for instance, overriding data with an empty table or partition, I've been lucky to be working with BigQuery and time travel feature, which is probably something that you really want to leverage if you don't know about it, because you can make mistakes, but at least those ones can be reversed. But it's not always the same thing if you input something with a wrong factor or so on. But sometimes it happened as well that I had to reprocess with custom rules and stuff like that to ensure that we get the data back in the right format. But yeah, if we discussed about things that I've been struggling overall, I think there are different topics. One of them, I would say the most common one for me is doing great performance optimization on my pipelines. As we discussed earlier, I've been working with a ton of data, and it's been sometimes challenging to find the right algorithm, the right way to process it, on ensure that it's a cost-effective way to do what we wanted. Sometimes we ended up really changing the approaches and have really incredible gains, multiple dozen of factor of improvements, beyond 100 sometimes. It really is very interesting how much we can do about optimization regarding data modeling and algorithms. So that's both sometimes very hard, but also very rewarding.
Yeah, that is interesting. It makes me wonder, Christophe, what some of the common misconceptions about data engineering might be. What are some of the things that people on the outside don't understand about data engineering?
People sometimes don't understand why it's hard to keep things synchronized on why some dashboards are not showing the same numbers as another dashboard. And it comes pretty often that you have to deep dive in all the pipelines and sometimes things that you didn't build. People just think that, yeah, it's just number, just like it's an Excel worksheet, but it goes way, way beyond that. And yeah, sometimes it can be frustrating for the other teammates that you have. I mean, probably the business people that don't understand why it takes so long to do something, why the numbers are not there at a specific time, why it's breaking on, you can't explain it all the time. And that's something that may be frustrating. I remember having some email from the CEO back then saying, why the data is not there? It's already 9 a.m.
Wow. That's a problem. It makes me wonder, Christophe, what do the data teams actually look like at Teads? So which roles do you have working with you on your team?
Well, I work in what we call a feature team, which is more like a team where we deliver features. We're not like a data platform team.
Oh, okay.
I'm working with a team that is very data driven because we are working on things about targeting people for ads and targeting some context as well. So there are a lot of data involved coming from different partners. So we ingest a ton of data on build some insights and also make it flow for billing, invoicing, and a lot of different processes. And we also do a lot of machine learning. So all those data are used into deep learning algorithm to try to model things. That's very interesting. But at the same time, we very recently added a core team that is kind of responsible for the data platform. So I've been historically managing DBT for the company, but it's probably going to shift over the next years as we have a dedicated team to with that. But as a staff engineer, I also got some opportunity to work on, choose a bit the topics on which I'm going to spend some time on. Definitely, data platform is one of them, and we want to shape it so that it meets the expectation of the teams that deliver the product for the company.
That's exciting. I'm loving the fact that you're seeing progression and growth in your role. You're getting a dedicated core data team, which should be very helpful to you. But I'm curious then, for people who don't have enough support as a data professional, how have you, Christophe, managed burnout or stress, especially when deadlines are tight or your stakeholders have unreasonable expectations? Over the years, how have you managed all of this?
I've been quite lucky. Obviously, there are some kind of issues. As we discussed earlier, sometimes the data is not yet there and the CEO is really asking eagerly. So it can be a difficult moment.
Yes.
But I've been lucky to have like pretty strong teammates that could help me to navigate issues. And I've been also for, I think 8 years, been part of the on-duty team as well. So I've been quite able to work somehow under pressure to work on urgent issue. But what makes it easier probably is like the teamwork. The engineering team is often very helpful, and we communicate a lot so that if deadlines are not met, we can somehow postpone things or adjust the expectation so that we deliver a part of the expectation on time. I've been also lucky to work in ad tech, and I would say not meeting a deadline is not like life-threatening for other things.
I see. Yeah.
Usually, even in stressful situation, I try just to relax, breathe, and get the job done.
I like it. That's helpful. Yeah, it's true. Sometimes the industry can have an impact on how much day-to-day stress that we're going through. what you've shared is helpful. Let's share some happy stories though, Christophe. So some success stories. Do you have any stories of a project that you're really proud of? Could you talk about that?
So yeah, one of them is what I've been working on for about a year or so. So thanks to DPT, we've been creating dozens of pipelines. At some point, you kind of figure out that you're doing the same thing twice or more. It starts to be costly. And the past year, I've been focusing a part of my time on trying to consolidate everything we built for a few years already and make it more efficient. Thanks to that, the effort paid off, and we managed to save hundreds of thousands of spending on our data warehouse. On top of all the cost saving, we also gain a lot of productivity as well, because when things are simpler, everyone can contribute and you don't need too much expertise. It reduces also the amounts of bugs and so on. And one of the most challenging part was converting a pretty complex Scala job into SQL, because as you know, SQL is great, but sometimes it's hard to express the very same thing that you will be materializing as you would do in a programming language. So it worked out pretty well, and it really contributed to simplify things, because when you got things going outside of the data warehouse and coming back, it makes things even more complex.
Right. Wow. That's phenomenal. I wonder then, Christophe, you've been able to find cost savings on data warehouse spending. You've gained productivity, and then because of this more simple structure, more people are contributing. How are you measuring the impact of your work?
Very good question. At Teads, we're lucky because we're a business where most of the things are digital. So we've been building a lot of data pipeline that lends into our BI tools. And from that, we can really see how things are performing. We can see if our products are being used, how they are contributing to the revenue of the company, and the trends and where we're going. That's usually very helpful because the company can know where to focus from there. And I would really advise people to try to add monitoring on everything they are building, so that they can actually use that analytics to really narrow the effort on what matters, which really help them to make the products successful. And that's the
really
same
helpful
for the cost saving. I mean, we're actually tracking cost of our data warehouses.
Yes.
So again, monitoring makes it much easier to know where to strike.
Christophe, you're doing some really cool stuff. You're adding a lot of value to Teads, your employer. What would you say professional success looks like to you?
The success depends on what you want to achieve. Something that I really like is that when you feel like people trust your feedbacks, your reviews, and get to you to have ideas about how things should be done. That's how I measure success in how people see me. Part of the job as a staff engineer is to be a role model, someone that can be supporting anyone. So I feel like it's very rewarding when people trust you to help them to be successful in their projects for the company.
Wow. That's good. You know, Christophe, for those of us who started out with technical backgrounds, whether it was programming or engineering or math, I feel like a lot of times we built our technical skills, but sometimes we didn't build our relationship skills, our soft skills, as sometimes they call it. And I'm curious, how, as a staff software engineer, you talk about leading other people, teaching, mentoring. Was that always natural to you? Were you always naturally a good teacher, a good leader, or did you actually have to build those skills?
I think I probably built those skills. I wasn't naturally outgoing at the very beginning, but I think that's part of the growth that you have to really focus on. I think it's probably not natural for all of us. It depends on the culture, but it wasn't for me. So you have to sometimes push yourself to really communicate with people, be proactive. Well, probably the context helped. I was helped a lot by my different managers that gave me the opportunity to express myself and spend time helping people. And that's also something that you need to experience. But probably first part of the growth was raising my level by myself technically, and then share it and work on the communication, stay curious, and keep evolving in that regard. I think I'm part of the people that probably don't like to settle. I really appreciate to deep dive into things, and I learned a ton from whatever I tried and from people I discussed with. So yeah, I think communications help a lot on top of reading as well.
Man, this is good. This is helping me a lot. All right, we're going to have to start wrapping up right now because it's Friday night in Montpellier, France, and I don't know which bars Christophe might be going to, so we need to let him go, but I just have a couple more questions. Christophe, are there any mentors or managers throughout your career who have been really helpful that we could mention their names and just publicly acknowledge them in this conversation?
Yeah, well, probably I think I didn't have that many managers. I've been quite lucky to have a long time relationship with my manager that also grew. I had two impactful managers. One of them was Brice Jaglin, which is a staff engineer now in another company. My current manager is one of the Teads founder. It's Loïc Jaurès, and he is now working as a VP as well in the company.
Very nice, very nice. Well, we are grateful to both of these individuals for helping Christophe to become the leader that he is right now. That's excellent. Let's ask one more question. Final question. This has been really helpful. Folks who are watching or listening, I hope you're getting as much value as I am. You said you like to never settle. Where do you see yourself career-wise in 5 years?
I'm not exactly sure yet. One of the paths I would probably take would be trying to reach what we call the principal level. That's probably the last one, at least for the time being in my company. The expectation and even higher. I've been operating across an organization, but principal level is at company level where you lead really projects that are transforming the company. I think that's a very interesting challenge. At the same time, it can be a bit bitter if you really like to be hands-on. But at the same time, I've been a builder, and what I really care about is seeing things being built, big things when it's possible. That's the kind of role that I feel really appealing to me. But obviously, I will be still tinkering on my end. Maybe someday I will build my own company. I don't know. But so far, I've been focusing on building big stuff at Teads.
I love this. This is great. Before we started the recording, Christophe was telling me, maybe 8 years ago, you did an interview. 2016. Thank you. So 8 or 9 years ago, Christophe did an interview that was focused on his career. And it almost feels like writing something in your diary or creating a time capsule where you can go back and say, okay, what was I talking about then? And how have I grown now? So I love that you have this vision. I know I asked you to just think of it on the spot, but at least you came up with a vision of where you might like to be in 5 years. And I respect the fact, Christophe, that you've pointed out that sometimes when we get promotions, maybe we're pulled away from the day-to-day hands-on work. Some people are okay with that. Other people don't want that, and that's fine. So I appreciate you sharing your own vision. Thank you.
Sure. Obviously, it's not so easy, and it can be very stressful to work on very large scope, and you sometimes get out of touch. But I've been lucky as well to really grow within the same company and in touch with all the different projects I've been building. And it's always very interesting to see how things are actually evolving, things you built, how they are maintained, and who is now taking care of that. So you have to sometimes let it go
Wow.
because products are evolving and things that you built so long time ago is no longer relevant. But at the same time, it's still very interesting to see that things that you built 10 years ago are still live and useful to people.
Wow. Yeah, that's true. That is interesting. When you put your own knowledge, your creativity into creating a solution, I'm thinking, yeah, sometimes it's difficult to see somebody else manage that and to see them change it, but it also means that you are growing. It means you have grown beyond that project. Now you're solving other problems. So maybe this is a challenge all of us need to learn how to manage.
Exactly.
All right, Christophe, this has been fun. My friends, you've been watching the Data Career Show, the show where we watch analytics engineers, data engineers, analysts, and scientists transform their careers. We've been talking to Christophe Oudar from Montpellier, France. Christophe, thank you so much for sharing your story.
It was a pleasure for me to share, and I've been looking at different points of view, so I'm very eager to learn from other folks as well, in different point of view on their careers and how they evolve. And so if you need anything, you can get in touch with me on the DBT stack.
I love it. And we will include all of Christophe's contact information, the LinkedIn, how you can find him on Slack. He also has a Substack that I highly recommend you subscribe to. We'll have links for all of that in the show notes and the podcast description. But for now, thank you for hanging out with us on the Data Career Show. Bye for now. Thank you, Christophe.
Thank you. Bye.
This show is brought to you by DBT. DBT is the industry standard for data transformation. It allows your team to prepare data for analysis in a way that's centralized, modular, and entirely open, all inside your cloud data platform. The outcome? Consistently dependable analytics for your organization. Now, the DBT community was built for and by data pros. Come hang out and transform with 70,000 of the brightest analytics engineers, data analysts, and data scientists in the world. With DBT, you transform your data. With the DBT community, you transform your data career.